Well, welcome to the fun and mentals of real estate. I'm your host today, Angela Dillmon with the Dillmon Group. And I know you're wondering where Glenn is, but Glenn is off today, so you're not going to get the fun. I don't know. But maybe Josh can be really hilarious.
I'll try.
Today. I don't know. We'll
I'll
see.
try and bring the fun.
Yes, that's right. So Josh Gulledge, our expert buyer's agent, is joining us again today. And Josh has a question of the day for you.
Yeah, so today we're talking about building inspections and occupancy inspections. So one of the main things is just what are they, and the question is, will an occupancy inspection catch everything that a safety and building inspection will catch?
Okay, so we're under contract on our buyer series here, and you have the right to a building inspection. So here in St. Louis, Missouri, in the St. Louis contracts, contracts are different across the country. So first of all, I'm going to point that out. Our standard inspection time is about 10 days. And also in our contracts, our typical contracts are required the seller to order and pay for an occupancy inspection. And you're like, what in the world?
What is an occupancy inspection?
That is totally different than your building inspection. Okay, so an occupancy inspection is either by the city, so let's say you're in the city of Baldwin or Manchester, as opposed to being in unincorporated St. Louis County, maybe you're in St. Louis City, maybe you're in St. Charles City. The cities have their own occupancy inspection. So an occupancy inspection is before you get to live in the house, I, as the city or county, must come out, check it that it's safe, and then I'll give you a piece of paper that says you can occupy. So that's what an occupancy permit is.
So Angie, what happens if they don't get it done? They get the list,
well,
and they decide not to do it.
Yes. So this happens for a lot of people. You can buy a house without this inspection, but you can't live in it until you have this inspection and it's passed. Not just have it, but it's cleared. Okay? And so if you decide that you're going to go ahead and move in anyway, then you either will be fined, right? Sometimes $100 a day, $500 a day.
Wow, $100 a day.
Right. Or they can they can refer it to the city or county attorney and prosecute you for coming in to live in it. So it's a law. It's a law in a city or a county that you must do this before occupying when you either sell a house or rent a house. Now, some cities, like Chesterfield here, they don't have this requirement. The city's like, yeah, we're not doing that. So, if you're in Chesterfield, if you're in the city of Wildwood right now, they don't have these things. Kirkwood does. Webster Groves does. Right? But there's many cities that don't. Unincorporated St. Louis County, yes. St. Louis City, yes. St. Charles County, yes. St. Peter's, no. Right? A lot of places in Jefferson County pretty much don't require an occupancy permit.
And sometimes I know that there are different, they do for the rentals, but they don't for owner occupants. So
it's usually always required if you're going to rent a house or a condo.
Yeah.
But usually,
sometimes on
not.
New constructions are a little different.
New construction, they're going to get their own occupancy permit. They do get an occupancy permit though. Once that house is completed and they have the final inspection, they issue an occupancy.
Yeah. So again, that just goes to show it's really important to each specific house could have a different requirements, and fire can be
and
required.
You can also have one from city county, and then also the fire department in your area, like Metro West. Here in West County, they require one. But if you're in Chesterfield and you're in Monarch Fire, don't require one. So the fire department may come out and you're like, okay, well, what's the process like? Well, the process is, in our standard contracts, the seller orders and pays for it. Costs about $80 to $100, depending on if it's fire or county or city. You can do it online usually. You pay for it. Some of them, like the city of Maplewood, you must walk it into their door, and they act like there's no, there's no tech that's ever available for some of the cities. Just saying, it is what it is. You must do it. You're like, why do I have to do this? Because they say so. I'm just saying, it's a law, and so they say so, right? Yep. So the seller will normally pay for it. But Josh, let me ask you this. So it's in the contract. The seller pays for it. Do you have the inspection? Does the seller have to do all these occupancy requirements? Is it required of them?
It's not required of them. Again, if they want to sell it to a buyer, they have to disclose it. So a new buyer would have to say I'm okay with doing those repairs, but someone has to do it before you can move in.
Before you can move in. So technically in our contracts, even though the seller is required to pay for it and have it, it's negotiable. If the seller orders it right away and right away tells you, I'm going to fix this but not that, and it becomes a negotiation, and if you don't like, the county says you have to replace this retaining wall, and the seller's like, I'm not doing that, and you're like, I'm not doing that, well then you don't have to buy the house.
Yeah, and again, I've had hundreds of occupancy inspections, and I've never had a seller say no to it because it's not my buyers being the ones that are saying do this for me. It's
right.
The buyers probably don't even really care about whatever the county is flagging.
Typical standard practice, the seller does usually make these repairs because if not for you, probably going to have to do it for the next buyer, right? And it's also a requirement. It's a law. So in these occupancy permits, they'll tell you, we command you basically to make these repairs within so many days. Fire departments are really short. They're like 30 days. You have us come back out. City, county, it's usually like 90 days or sometimes even 6 months, and sometimes you can get an extension. But now it's on your house. Like it's part of the requirement for now you. So you're like, oh, so a lot of times the sellers will do. Okay, so they order it, they pay for it, it's negotiable. Now, the inspector comes out. What does he typically look for? What would you say are the typical things?
Yeah, so this is really where a lot, to answer our question of the day is, will an occupancy inspection catch everything a normal building inspection will catch? And the answer to that is just flat out no. They are completely different. Occupancy inspections are a lot of code and safety issues. So they don't get up on the roof. They don't check your furnace.
Right.
They love to catch, like if we had 5 standard things that they love to catch. They love GFCI receptacles. So to limit the shock hazard, it's a special receptacle.
Right. Within 6 foot of water. So kitchens and
bathrooms,
need GFIs.
Garages, unfinished basements outside. They love those.
Love those.
Handrails on basements. Sometimes people remove the handrails because it's easier to get the couch down the stairs and they don't put it back up. So there's
handrails on your porch, handrail walking out the back deck, handrails. They love handrails and guardrails. You can't have more 4-inch spaces between either balusters on your railings or guardrails that go vertically.
And again, they'll always catch your, if you have a detached garage and the detached garage is leaning like really, really bad, they're not going to be able to I can't see it leaning. The deck is like halfway off the house.
They don't like any of that stuff. Deadbolts are another big thing, right? So if you use a key on the inside to get out your front door and you need a key to... And a lot of older houses have that instead of just a little latch that you turn. They want you to be able to get out in case there's a fire. So if you're using a key, that's a no-no. You got to change the deadbolts. That's a big thing of theirs.
Yeah, and again, cabinets that are like leaning off the wall if they're not properly secured.
Loose counters, loose cabinets, that's a big thing.
But guys, me and Angela both have different rental properties, and every time we get a new tenant, we have to get new occupancy inspections done. There is so much on these occupancy inspections that is totally subjective. So you go through 3 years in a row of tenant changes, and lo and behold, every single year there's another thing that was on it. Like I didn't change it; it was there last year, and the last occupancy inspector didn't care. So
I just had this on one of my rentals. I just had an occupancy last year. Fix the things. The smoke detectors, they like smoke detectors in every bedroom, in the hallway, a carbon monoxide detector, that's what we had to install. There wasn't very many things on it at all. This year, 1 year later, now they don't like, there was some loose handrail, but they didn't like that I didn't have enough guardrails on the side of the stairs going to the basement. Had to install those. Some loose tape in the garage was kind of coming off. That had to be retaped and mudded. Silly stuff like that. There was a loose outlet. He didn't like a stain in the ceiling. Had to fix that. So stuff that was not on it a year ago appears this year. Isn't that incredible? Yeah. You had a rental up in North County, and that was That was super interesting. I think it was fluorescent, wasn't it?
It was in fluorescent. They got me they wanted me to power wash the sidewalk. I'm like, that's probably the city's responsibility.
Is that a safety issue for you? I'm just saying, but these can get out of hand sometimes.
Yeah.
You had to clean your windows. You said clean
the windows were dirty.
I was like, well, that's not a safety issue. I even talked to the inspector and I said, hey, clean the windows, um, cut the grass. I think was on there too. And I'm like, why is clean the windows on there? And he's like, well, I had to do something for the buyer. And I'm like, what? I thought this was for safety issues. So it's every inspector is different,
It
and
is.
it's really up to them.
And again, codes change, and they do
They
make
do.
the revisions to something that, again, if we're talking many years, something 10 years ago was perfectly fine.
Right.
Now it's
Now it's not so
it's their
fine.
way of enforcing their changes.
Another
Is
big one is if they feel like there's something new and you didn't get a permit and you should have, they're all on it. They're all over it. So if you put in a water heater and they're like, I don't think that water heater is new, they look in the system. They're like, well, you didn't get a permit for that water heater. They're gonna go get one, right? A bathroom tiles is another big thing. I had one recently where the bathroom, the walls in the tub shower area had been retiled. Didn't think it was that big of a deal, right? This was Maryland Nights. Guy comes out. He takes the beauty ring off of over the tub faucet, takes a peek in there, is like, hey, there's green board behind those tiles. These tiles look new. He's like, you know what? You need a permit for that, and you didn't get one. It should be cement board behind those tiles. I was like, we need a permit for a tile. Like I didn't do the work, so I didn't know. But I called the I called the handyman. He's like, I didn't know I needed a permit, and so they were nice enough to say that it was done well, and they let it pass. But they could have easily made us tear it all out
Yeah.
and redo it. And so get your permits if you're in an area that requires occupancy.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's like a huge deal. I think so. In what ways is it really not kind of like a building inspection?
Yeah. So again, depending on the situation and if the buyers are doing the occupancy or if the seller's doing it, again, there's
Mm-hmm.
lots of scenarios, but building inspections will catch pretty much all the major defects that an occupancy inspection will
Mm-hmm.
catch. I don't think I've had one recently where a building inspector, a safety inspector will come in and miss something an occupancy inspector will flag. Like
Yeah.
the garage is leaning and the occupancy inspector catches it and the building inspector doesn't. It has never
Yeah, never
happened.
happened. But let's just say a furnace, for instance. Like,
But
is
yeah,
the occupancy guy really going to check my furnace out?
no, they don't. And
No.
again, an occupancy inspect or an occupancy inspection will catch smaller things that a building inspector will not flag. So a building inspector
Right.
is not going to say the stairs don't have a handrail, unless it's a really obvious, like this is a major safety issue. But
Right.
all the little code stuff, the building inspectors will not note because it's not currently damaging or wrong. It's just not what the county wants to see.
Right. So they're not going to check your AC out. They're not going to check your water heater out. They're not going to check your furnace. They don't climb in the
They
attic.
won't scope the sewer. They won't
They
check
won't.
they
Yeah, they
won't
won't
check the
camera that sewer line.
chimney.
That's a big one.
They won't check the
They
chimney.
don't. Man, I just had one that I have a fireplace in, and Metro Fire didn't even make me get a fire inspection on the chimney. And I'm like, okay, so you're worried about me getting out in case of a fire, and at the garage wall there's taping and firewall up there to slow the fire down, but you're not worried about if I'm gonna burn the house down in the chimney. But some of them will require a chimney inspection, so you just like never know there. But they don't get inside. They're not really invasive to anything. They just basically walk around.
Yeah.
And that's it, really. So
I know that they're harder in uh, lower price points in different counties because it's kind of their way of making sure they can maintain the neighborhoods a little bit more.
right, they do look for exterior
So again,
problems.
they want
Yeah,
power washing if it's really bad, like a lot of mildew on the side of your siding.
right. Retaining walls.
Fence lines, retaining walls. It is their way of being able to enforce something that's kind of an eyesore.
Trying to keep up the neighborhoods looking nice. So like the city sometimes only has exterior, and they just care about what the exterior and the neighborhood's looking like, and they want to try to maintain that. And so trip hazards on a sidewalk if the sidewalks are really out of whack. If your concrete steps going up to your porch are bad.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a deck that's falling off or is really in disrepair, they don't like those kind of things. They will tag you for them. Peeling paint, they don't like that on the exteriors, so that's a big deal.
And sometimes these occupancy inspections affect the loan a little bit too. So again, there's a lot of moving pieces with these that you really just
Yeah. So does the lender require it?
That
That's a really great question. And most of the time, you'd say what?
Most of the time, no, but there are
Mhm.
definitely certain loan programs that do. So
MHCC, the Missouri Housing Development Corp, your first-time
yeah.
home buyer gifting program, it requires
Again, this is
financing.
just it goes to show again you really need to have somebody that's an expert on this stuff because
Mhm.
this can definitely either delay deals,
It
could
can.
potentially kill a deal,
Yeah.
affect you moving in. So again, we've done so many of them now, and we have the people to help line it up. So
Right.
getting a professional to help you in these through these and make sure you got the adequate coverage and there aren't as many surprises is really key.
Yeah, it is really key. So, and there's like no fun in occupancy. I'm just going to say it's all mental. Sorry about
Yeah.
that, but that's the way today went. But it is something that you do need to pay attention to. And when you're negotiating in St. Louis in particular, you can make an offer on a house that does not require the seller to do an occupancy,
Yeah.
but you must have it to move in or for a tenant to move in. If you're going to remodel it, get the permits that are needed. I'm just
Yeah.
going to say because occupancy is going to nail you on it. Now, if you're in Jefferson County, hardly ever require occupancy. Whole different story over there.
Yeah.
So, county, cities, all specific. So, thanks for joining us today, talking about occupancy permits. Sorry it was so mental, but next time we're going to talk about building inspections and exactly what are they, what are your rights here in our standard contracts, because it is different across the country,
Yeah.
right? And Josh is going to join us next week too. So thanks for joining us. I'm your host here, Angela Dillmon, with the Dillmon Group at KW Chesterfield. We are here to help you build wealth, live your dream lifestyle, and leave legacies that matter. Till next week, give us a like, give us a share. Thanks.